I work in the Mississippi Delta, so I'm going to talk about that. And for the last several thousand years, since the stabilization of sea level after the last glaciation, which occurred about 7,000 years ago, that was the big era of delta building of the current deltas worldwide. And so the Mississippi formed this, immense deltaic plain of maybe 20,000 square kilometers over a several thousand year period, and it did that as the river occupied different channels in getting to the coast, so that, for instance, several thousand years ago, the present Mississippi Channel didn't exist, and it formed this large deltaic plain, and there was, water flowed out of the Mississippi and flowed over the deltaic plain, delivering fresh water, sediments, nutrients, and other things in river water. And one thing that's happened is that the river has been isolated from the delta largely by levees along the course. It run almost to the mouth of the Mississippi River, and so that stopped the introduction of river water and sediments into the delta. The amount of sediments coming down the river have been dramatically reduced, and the big reduction is due to the construction of large dams on the Missouri River. If you consider where the water and sediments come from, they come down the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico. Most of the water comes from the Ohio River, but most of the sediments come from the Missouri River. It comes from the drier part of the watershed where there's easier erosion. So, and to understand what's going on in the Mississippi River now, you need to understand that there's a process of subsidence, that is, this gradual sinking, and it's continual, and it varies from a few millimeters up to more than a centimeter a year. And for wetlands, the immense wetlands, to survive, the wetlands have to grow upward at a rate equal to the rate that the water level is going up, both due to eustatic sea level rise, which is the actual increase in the volume of the sea, and the subsidence. And under natural conditions, the river water introduced sediments which directly built up the surface of the wetlands, and it also introduced nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus and other components in seawater that stimulated wetland growth, and so you had what's called organic soil formation due to the growth of roots, because wetland soils are in the Mississippi Delta are a combination of mineral sediments and organic material. So with the separation of the river from the deltaic plain and the great reduction in sediment concentrations by over half, then the delta began to deteriorate, and due to a lack of input of riverine sediments and river water, and also because of vast changes that were taking place within the deltaic plain itself, and they included massive disruptions in hydrology due to the construction of canals, and the dredged material from those canals created spoil banks which affected the hydrology. It allowed saltwater intrusion, and then the enormous oil and gas activity in the delta increased the rate of sinking, or the rate of subsidence. So all of these factors have led to a situation where there's been a rapid deterioration of the delta, and about a fourth of the deltaic wetlands were lost in the 20th century. And so if these trends continue into the future, especially with projections for accelerated sea level rise, then some projections are that the whole delta would disappear by the end of this century. Well, again, I'm speaking mainly of the Mississippi Delta, because the difference between the Mississippi Delta and the rest of the Gulf Coast is it's much more stable. It's not sinking so fast because of the weight of those sediments brought down by the river, and also they're not so extensive wetlands. And the effect of the Mississippi Delta comes well into Texas. But you lose the wetlands, the delta deteriorates away, you become much more susceptible to hurricanes, to rising sea level, and the communities of people who live within the delta become much more threatened. And ultimately, if these trends continue, most of those people are going to have to move, and we're going to lose communities all through the delta, and we'll lose the really high ecological productivity with fishing and other activities that takes place there. Texas and Louisiana together produce a large proportion of the fisheries of the United States.